Good morning, everyone. Good morning. For everyone joining us in the hearing room today, welcome back to Arundel House, and a warm welcome also to everyone following these proceedings virtually. This hearing, which begins today and ends on the 28th of October, Tuesday the 28th of October, further builds on the evidence heard by this inquiry earlier in the year during our July and April hearings. We'll shortly be hearing a statement from counsel to the inquiry, Nicholas Griffin KC. This will be followed later today and tomorrow by evidence about the use of technology in mental health inpatient settings, specifically about vision-based monitoring systems and how and why they're used, and the issues and potential concerns arising from their use. From Wednesday of this week until the end of the hearing, we shall hear from bereaved families about their experiences and the experiences of their family member, or of mental health inpatient care and treatment within Essex. It's a pertinent time to hear this evidence, given that Friday was World Mental Health Day, a day in the global calendar dedicated to raising awareness of mental health. It remains crucial that we keep in our minds the people who experienced, either directly or indirectly, the mental health inpatient services with which this inquiry is concerned. My inquiry team continues to engage with bereaved families to assist them in understanding the work of the inquiry and to support them, where appropriate, to participate in our work. Mr. Griffin will shortly provide further details about how the inquiry has been engaging with core participants and witnesses. One example of this engagement is the question and answer event which my inquiry team hosted in Essex on the 15th of September. This provided an opportunity for bereaved family core participants to ask questions directly of my inquiry team. My team found this to be a valuable way to gauge what more we can do within the inquiry to explain and demystify the sometimes technical and complex inquiry processes, and how better to assist and engage with core participants. We plan to run this event again in the next few months. It'll be a virtual event, allowing those participating to join remotely. Shortly before this hearing, I received a joint written application from the legal representatives acting for bereaved families, seeking permission to address me directly in relation to a number of matters. I'm grateful for this offer, and I'm happy to provide an opportunity for legal representatives to address me. In his opening remarks today, Mr. Griffin will outline when and how this will occur. Moving on, I now wish to talk briefly about confidentiality undertakings and their crucial importance to the inquiry's work. In order to investigate matters properly in accordance with this inquiry's terms of reference, we may need to disclose certain information to others. This may include personal data and information about those who are now deceased. This inquiry takes very seriously its responsibilities and obligations in relation to the proper handling of all information, particularly personal and sensitive material. We take great care to ensure that such information is managed securely, lawfully, and respectfully at each stage. Anyone who is granted access to inquiry documents is required to sign confidentiality undertaking. This doesn't prevent the sharing of inquiry material where it is necessary and authorised. It ensures that each individual who views or becomes aware of inquiry material, whether a member of a legal team, a family representative, an expert, or anyone else personally undertakes to treat that material in accordance with the inquiry's requirements. The confidentiality undertaking is deliberately broad. This is standard practice for public inquiries, reflecting both the sensitivity of the information we hold and our obligations under the law. Recently, the inquiry has experienced issues with a small number of organisations who've not yet signed the confidentiality undertaking. Although the inquiry understands that careful consideration may be required, continued delay restricts the inquiry's ability to engage openly and to progress certain areas of its work. For this inquiry to carry out its work effectively, thoroughly, and lawfully, everyone involved must handle inquiry material in the manner we have set out. The confidentiality undertaking is a vital safeguard. It must be signed and it must be adhered to. I wish to record my appreciation to the large majority of individuals and organisations who have signed and complied with these undertakings. Your cooperation helps to protect the dignity of those whose information we hold and supports the inquiry's ability to deliver its work with integrity and trust that the public expects. Before I pass over to counsel to the inquiry, I wish to thank all those who will be providing evidence at this hearing. I appreciate that being a witness to a public inquiry may be a challenging experience for many people, and I'm grateful to all the witnesses for their time, their participation, and their candour. And I'm now going to hand over to counsel to the inquiry, Nicholas Griffin-Casey.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is the Lampard Inquiry's 5th public hearing, and the second hearing during which the inquiry will hear directly from those who are at the heart of its work. As you've said, Chair, today and tomorrow morning, we'll be hearing evidence relating to the use of Oxyvision in mental health inpatient units. From tomorrow afternoon onwards, this hearing will focus on hearing oral evidence from more bereaved family members concerning the deaths of those under the care of trusts in Essex. Once again, can I join you, Chair, in saying how very grateful we are to all of the family members and to others who provided witness statements to the inquiry. We do not take for granted how difficult it is for those involved to share again the details of their family members' deaths. We thank them for their courage. Before I go any further, I must stress again that during this opening statement and throughout the next 2.5 weeks, the inquiry will be referring to and hearing about matters that will be very distressing and difficult. We will be hearing disturbing evidence about further individual deaths and experiences. These details may be deeply painful and traumatic for many of those who are here today or watching online. As we have done at previous hearings, at the start of each day, we will briefly summarise the evidence to be heard. This will give those attending, watching and listening the opportunity to decide whether they wish to engage with that evidence. The timetable for this hearing is also available on the inquiry website. I would like to reiterate to all those engaging with the inquiry that emotional support is available for anyone who requires it. The well-being of those participating is extremely important to the inquiry. Anyone in this hearing room is welcome to leave at any point. We have 2 support staff here from Hestia, an experienced provider of emotional support, and they will be here today and for every day of this hearing. There's a private room where you can talk to the Hestia support staff if you require emotional support at all throughout this hearing. The Hestia support staff are wearing orange-coloured lanyards and scarves, and there's one in the room. I might just ask her to hold up her hand so people can see where she is. Just there, thank you very much. Alternatively, please do speak to a member of the inquiry team, and we can put you in touch with them. We're wearing, as you've heard, purple-coloured lanyards. If you're watching online, information about available emotional support can be found on the Lampard Inquiry website at lampardinquiry.org.uk and under the Support tab near the top right-hand corner. You can also contact the inquiry team's mailbox on contact@lampardinquiry.org.uk for this information. We want all of those engaging with the inquiry to feel safe and supported. The role and remit of the inquiry is to investigate mental health inpatient deaths. It is not the role of the inquiry to intervene in clinical decisions for current patients or to act as a regulator or in the role of the police. However, the inquiry has a safeguarding policy, and we have team members who are specifically responsible for overseeing safeguarding matters. We take safeguarding very seriously. Where we receive any information which meets our safeguarding threshold, we will continue to pass it on to the appropriate organisation. I will be supported at this hearing by members of the Council to the Inquiry team, including Rebecca Harris, King's Counsel, Rachel Troop, Priya Malhotra, Tom Coke-Smythe, Natasha Lloyd-Owen, and Thomas Hayes. They've been working closely and directly with bereaved families and, where applicable, their legal representatives, particularly in advance of this hearing. The Council team also works closely with the Lampard Inquiry solicitor team under Catherine Turtle, and together we work with the Secretariat team and the Inquiry's engagement team, with whom many of those engaging with the inquiry have been in contact. Chair, the Inquiry team works for you and as instructed by you. We are independent from all other organisations and individuals involved in this inquiry, and we must be very careful to ensure that we remain so. I would also like, once again, to introduce the lawyers who are representing core participants. Representing bereaved families and those with lived experience, Bates Wells, with counsel Sophie Lucas, Bat Murphy, with Fiona Murphy, King's Counsel, and Sophie Miles, Bindmans, with Brenda Campbell, King's Counsel, and Tom Stote, Hodge Jones Allen, with Stephen Snowden, King's Counsel, Elena Misra, King's Counsel, Dr. A.K. Burren, Rebecca Henshaw Keane, and Jake Looms, Erwin Mitchell, and separately Lee Day, and separately Dayton Pierce Glynn, who have all instructed Maya Sikand, KC, and Laura Profumo, and representing core participant organisations, Bat Murphy for Inquest, with Anna Morris, King's Counsel, and Lily Lewis, Brown Jacobson for Essex Partnership University NHS Foundation Trust, or EPUT, with Eleanor Gray, King's Counsel, and Adam Fullwood, Kennedy's for the North East London NHS Foundation Trust, or NELFT, with Valerie Charbet, and in-house representation and DAC Beechcroft for NHS England, with Jason Beer, King's Counsel, and Amy Clark, and the Government Legal Department for the Department of Health and Social Care. Mills and Reeve for the Integrated Care Boards, with Kate Brunner, King's Counsel, Jenny Richards, King's Counsel, and Rachel Sullivan for the Care Quality Commission, and Bevan Britton for Oxy Health, with Fiona Scolding, King's Counsel. Essex County Council Legal Services for Essex County Council, Essex Police Legal Department for Essex Police, Signet Health Care Limited Legal Team for Signet Health Care, Waitmans for British Transport Police, and Womble Bond Dickinson for St Andrews Healthcare. Whilst the inquiry must remain careful to preserve its independence, it continues to engage directly wherever it can with all core participants and their legal representatives. Specifically assigned members of the inquiry team meet regularly both with the legal teams representing bereaved families and those representing healthcare providers and other stakeholders. The inquiry has sought views on important evidential and procedural matters, both via the submissions provided by core participants after the April hearing and the meetings that followed. It will seek to engage core participants further in the course of its investigative work. We will continue to hold meetings with those representing core participants. We consider that these meetings provide a valuable additional opportunity to listen and discuss individual concerns. Whilst as an independent inquiry, it's not possible to accept every proposal or submission, the discussions have resulted in positive developments in relation to key themes, including clear focus on systemic issues and accountability as part of the investigative strategy in respect of illustrative cases, the establishment of an expert instruction protocol, the decision to obtain background expert evidence in respect of neurodevelopmental conditions, in particular autism and ADHD, a recognition that there is a need for expert evidence in order to benchmark the relevant standards in inpatient care, and improvements in how disclosure is managed through relativity and the creation of the core participant workspace. Significantly, and as you have mentioned, Chair, earlier in September, the inquiry held an in-person question and answer session in the Chelmsford Civic Centre, to which bereaved family core participants were invited to attend. Senior members of the inquiry team were present, including Rachel Troop from the council team, Kieran Coleman from the solicitor team, and Tricia Rich from our secretariat, all of whom lead on family engagement in their respective areas, and who were there to answer any questions posed. We understand this session to have been received very positively by those who attended, to whom a note of the session will be circulated for their reference. As a result, and as you indicated, Chair, the inquiry intends to run another similar session before the end of the year, and this next session will be run virtually. Our aim is that this will allow greater access to the inquiry team for those who wish to ask any questions and attend. Although only a relatively short time has passed since our last public hearing in July, the inquiry has made very substantial progress. It's important, Chair, that the wider public are aware of the large amount of work that takes place away from public hearings. This opening statement will therefore provide an update on some of that progress before turning to introduce the important evidence that we will be hearing over the course of the next 2.5 weeks. The inquiry continues to engage with the families and friends of those who died whilst under the care of trusts in Essex, and to obtain evidence from all those who wish to provide it. The inquiry will hear oral evidence from many of those families during this hearing, and will hear from more in February next year. Others have provided witness statements which will form part of the inquiry's body of evidence and will underpin our ongoing investigations, which I will turn to in just a moment. The inquiry is also obtaining evidence and witness statements from bereaved families who are not core participants. As you have always made clear, Chair, it is possible to engage with the inquiry and to provide evidence as a witness without being a core participant. Over 20 such families have confirmed that they wish to provide written statements. These families, who were previously spoken to by the Essex Mental Health Independent Inquiry, included. Furthermore, the inquiry is making considerable progress towards obtaining evidence from those who have lived experience of mental health services provided by trusts in Essex. the inquiry has taken very great care, with the input of its chief psychologist, to put into place an appropriate framework to enable core participants with lived experience to engage with the inquiry and provide evidence about their experiences, should they choose to. Having sought the views of those representing the core participants affected, the framework was finalised and published shortly after the last hearing. Those who wish to provide evidence have been given an extended period of time in which to complete the first step, which is a questionnaire. I should stress, however, that for any core participant who prefers not to give evidence, there will be other ways by which they can engage with the inquiry, including, for example, via the inquiry's recommendations and implementation forum. I will return to that shortly. Separately, the inquiry has also sought evidence from healthcare providers about the initiatives they have in place to seek, recognise and act upon information provided by those with lived experience of their services. Some of the most significant progress made by the inquiry in the past few months relates to the investigation of its illustrative cases. On your direction, Chair, the inquiry has set up a dedicated investigations team which leads on this crucial work. As I set out in July, the inquiry's approach to its illustrative cases has always been to begin by receiving the first-hand accounts and witness statements from the families and friends of those who died. Those accounts then inform the inquiry as to further investigative steps that need to be undertaken. By putting the evidence of families and friends front and centre of its investigative work, the inquiry ensures that families' concerns remain a key factor in determining what further evidence should be obtained. Development of the inquiry's investigative strategy has been an iterative process. That process has included the inquiry reaching an agreement with His Majesty's Coroner for Essex to obtain permission for any materials provided to families and or other interested persons in coronial proceedings to be forwarded to the inquiry. In many cases, this will now allow the inquiry to obtain relevant materials directly from families and trusts. The inquiry's investigative strategy is now finalised and will be published in November. The strategy clearly sets out, amongst other features, how illustrative cases will be assessed and then put together in groups by issue and or theme, how the inquiry will rely on previous findings of fact from reliable sources where appropriate, for example, criminal prosecutions, coronial findings of neglect, or regulatory proceedings, how the inquiry will seek to assess compliance on the part of healthcare providers and other organisations with any previous reviews or recommendations, including prevention of future death reports, the basis upon which the inquiry will look to instruct expert evidence when required, to consider common issues and themes that have arisen, focusing also on whether identifiable failings have been addressed since, how the inquiry will look to its illustrative cases to explore the extent to which stated systems, policies, and procedures have been or are effective as opposed to aspirational. Importantly, the strategy sets out clearly how the inquiry intends to engage with the families and friends of those who died, together with their legal representatives. The inquiry will also seek input from healthcare providers and other corporate core participants and organisations. Whilst much of the inquiry's work is now being driven by the investigation of our illustrative cases, the inquiry is also working hard to seek the further evidence and information it needs from healthcare providers, enforcement agencies, regulators, and other corporate stakeholders, all of whom the inquiry considers may have material relevant to our terms of reference. By way of example, the inquiry has sent multiple requests for evidence to EPUT, to NELFT, to Mid and South Essex NHS Foundation Trust, to private providers, to Essex Police, to British Transport Police, to healthcare regulators, including the HSE and the CQC, the Health and Safety Executive and the Care Quality Commission, to the local government and social care ombudsman, to the Disclosure and Barring Service, and to the National Medical Examiner. This list is not exhaustive. The inquiry is rigorously exploring and obtaining data on core issues, such as physical and sexual safety in inpatient units, safeguarding and discrimination in mental health services. The inquiry has also reached out to key individuals, including historians and authors, whose individual research may assist the inquiry in its work. In short, the inquiry continues to think laterally and expansively and will leave no stone unturned in order to meet its terms of reference. As I already touched on when referring to the inquiry's investigative strategy, the inquiry will scrutinise candour and accountability and the overall governance structures of those who provided and continue to provide mental health inpatient care in Essex. The governance work is looking ward to board at how services should be run and will measure what we are learning about how they are run against those standards. Chair, in April this year, you provided further clarification about how the inquiry would approach two separate particulars of its definition of inpatient. As I explained at that time, as a consequence, the inquiry invited the main healthcare providers to revisit and resubmit their lists of those who died whilst under their care in the relevant period. Obtaining updated and, as far as possible, definitive lists of deceased remains an absolute priority for this inquiry. Firstly, it is of the utmost importance for the inquiry to understand, as best we can, the number of people who died during the relevant period whilst under the care of trusts in Essex. We consider it is our duty and responsibility to pursue this information. It is extremely disturbing that we are still unable to say with any certainty how many people died. Whilst progress has been made, we are still not in a position to confirm numbers of deaths which fall within scope. We are acutely aware of the sensitivities surrounding this information, and for that reason, the inquiry considers it would be irresponsible to publish any numbers until we are confident that these are as accurate as possible. Secondly, information relating to deaths in scope is required to enable reliable and robust findings to be made about themes and patterns that are revealed. As I said at the July hearing, until the inquiry receives full information in relation to the deaths which fall within scope, we are simply not able to say how many of those involved serious failings or issues of concern, or whether they were deaths that could have been avoided. Unhappily, progress in providing those updated lists of deceased has been slow. The inquiry has only very recently received this information, some of which is still in draft form. We remain determined to get the most accurate figures available, using all of the information and expertise available to us, and we ask providers to do all within their power to ensure that this data is provided in as full a form as possible. The inquiry's expert health statistician, Professor Donnelly, remains engaged and ready to assist the inquiry to understand the list of deceased. Although her final analysis will be determined by the updated information, Professor Donnelly has continued to advise the inquiry on what further data ought to be obtained in order to place the lists of deceased into their proper context. That will be done using denominator data about the population of patients who were admitted to the same wards during the same period. Obtaining denominator data and other data necessary to corroborate information in the list of deceased has proved challenging. It has also highlighted some significant limitations in the available data. For example, efforts have been made to identify a readily available source of records of inquest so that these can be used to supplement and corroborate the lists of deceased from providers. Somewhat surprisingly, the inquiry has been informed that there is no central electronic repository for such records, meaning that any reconciliation must be done against archived paper records. Despite these challenges, progress is being made. The Mental Health Services Dataset, the MHSDS, held by NHS England, provides the best source of denominator data, although it only begins in 2016. Its two predecessors, the Mental Health and Learning Disabilities Dataset and Mental Health Minimum Dataset, are sparser in the information they hold. The inquiry has taken steps to obtain the MHSDS in the first instance. Once this has been reviewed, the earlier and sparser datasets can be considered. Progress has also been made in reaching agreement with the National Confidential Inquiry into Suicide and Safety in Mental Health to share anonymous aggregate data. This will assist Professor Donnelly and her team in corroborating the accuracy of the list of deceased. Core participants have now been provided with an update from Professor Donnelly, setting out in outline her approach and her work to date. We hope that this update will assist in informing our planned data discussion, which is intended to facilitate constructive suggestions as to further avenues the inquiry may wish to explore, given the apparent limitations of the data available. Arrangements for the data discussion will be circulated after this hearing. The inquiry is also looking to Professor Donnelly and her team to assist with the analysis and potential significance of other forms of information and sources of data. For example, staff and/or patient surveys, audits, evidence of evaluation, and so on. As I have already outlined, having considered careful observations made by core participants, the inquiry has prepared and published the Protocol on the Role and Instruction of Experts, which regulates the process of obtaining future expert evidence. The purpose of that protocol is to allow greater and earlier engagement from core participants in respect of proposed experts and other areas of expertise. In accordance with this protocol, the inquiry recently distributed to core participants its proposal for instructing experts to provide evidence about neurodivergence, including autism and ADHD. The inquiry proposes that this evidence covers, amongst other matters, key developments in the understanding and treatment of neurodevelopmental conditions across the relevant period. It is very important for the inquiry to understand how neurodivergence should be considered and reflected in the provision of mental health care. The inquiry has also identified the need for expert evidence to address the suggestion made by some that suicide may, in certain circumstances, not be preventable in the context of mental health inpatient care. We recognise that this is a very difficult and sensitive topic. It is an issue which arises in many of the inquiry's illustrative cases and is central to the concerns of many of the families and friends of those who've died. The inquiry is acutely aware, in addition, that this is an area where there is a range of expert opinion and emphasis. Some practitioners advocate for a risk management approach, whilst others argue for greater focus on a patient's underlying care and treatment. Chair, you have made clear that you wish to hear from both sides of that debate. To that end, we will shortly be sharing with CPs a proposal for the presentation of varied expert evidence on this topic. The inquiry is also actively looking at other evidence which may assist you to understand the tension between these concepts. I have already touched upon the inquiry's intention to instruct experts to consider its illustrative cases where appropriate. That process is set out in the investigative strategy. The inquiry's protocol on the instruction of experts will apply. I'd like to say something now about staff evidence. This is because, given the background of poor staff engagement with the Essex Mental Health Independent Inquiry, we are aware that there remains understandably considerable interest and concern about how the inquiry intends to secure relevant evidence from those who have seen or have heard first-hand exactly what happens on mental health inpatient units. The inquiry is working hard to secure the cooperation of present and former staff and to facilitate the flow of full and frank information. More individuals are now coming forward, and we are grateful to them for their assistance and their candour. The inquiry will continue to do all that it can to identify and obtain evidence from relevant staff, particularly those whose identities we are aware of. As I have already stated, the evidence from the families and friends of those who died and the inquiry's investigative strategy will inform the inquiry which staff may be able to provide relevant evidence. In addition, and importantly, the inquiry has secured assistance from appropriate third parties to help track down staff members who've moved on from their original Essex employers. The inquiry is also aware, however, that there may be many staff we do not currently know about and who have not come forward, not only because they fear workplace repercussions should they give evidence about colleagues and employers, but also because they fear professional repercussions should they now provide evidence which they could have provided before. Chair, that is why you instructed us to seek limited undertakings from healthcare providers and regulators to reassure those individuals and safeguard their position. You are aware, Chair, that following our hearing in July, the inquiry circulated proposed undertakings to all core participants and invited those who wished to provide views on whether we should pursue undertakings at all. Once again, we are extremely grateful to all those who engaged in this exercise. There was a variety of views expressed. The inquiry is in the process of reviewing all of the comments made and considering next steps. Chair, the Lampard Inquiry's terms of reference require you to make recommendations to improve the provision of mental health inpatient care. You have repeatedly stated your commitment to ensuring the recommendations you make bring about real and lasting change. The content and substance of any recommendation made is a matter for you, of course. But as with any inquiry, a recommendation is only as effective as the extent to which it is later implemented. As a consequence, not only is this inquiry determined to make robust recommendations, it is also determined to do whatever it can to ensure their proper implementation. Chair, under your direction, the inquiry has established its Recommendations and Implementation Forum. This forum will seek the views of others as to how the recommendations you make may be implemented to ensure meaningful change. As far as we are aware, the Lampard Inquiry is the first public inquiry ever to have taken such an important, innovative and collaborative step. With this forum in mind, the inquiry commissioned a briefing paper on recommendations and implementation from Dr. Emma Ireton, Associate Professor at Nottingham Law School. This paper was circulated just over 2 weeks ago to core participants and was accompanied by a paper from Counsel to the Inquiry, which sets out proposed arrangements for the Lampard Inquiry's Recommendations and Implementations Forum. The inquiry has invited views from core participants on how the forum might operate. We look forward to receiving those views later this year. Dr. Ireton's paper will be published on the inquiry's website this week. In August this year, as promised, the inquiry extended the use of the relativity platform to all core participants, material providers, and their legal representatives, also creating a core participant workspace. Training and technical support was provided. Relativity is a disclosure platform that facilitates the efficient review and analysis of documents. Disclosure for this hearing was made via Relativity, and the same method will be used for future hearings in 2026. Save we will continue to put in place suitable and workable arrangements for unrepresented core participants. Disclosure outside of the inquiry's hearing structure will also be made via Relativity. That disclosure will be determined to a large extent by the inquiry's investigative strategy and the material flowing from it. However, it will also include relevant disclosure from all of the other areas of evidence that I summarised this morning. The inquiry aims to begin its disclosure of material outside of the hearing structure with notice in the early part of next year, if not before. I'd like now to say a few words about this hearing, which runs from today until Tuesday, the 28th of October. During the next 2.5 weeks, the inquiry will first return to the postponed evidence regarding the use of Oxyvision, which was due to be heard in April, before hearing live evidence from further bereaved family members of those who died. As in July, the inquiry has invited the family witnesses to give evidence of their first-hand accounts, observations, recollections, and concerns. We have also invited them to give their current views on what recommendations should be made for change. As I stated earlier, hearing this evidence from families now is crucial. This evidence is the driving force behind the inquiry's investigations. As in July, the inquiry will be inviting the families to give their own direct evidence. The inquiry will not be seeking comments or analysis from the witnesses on other documents that relate to their relatives' care and treatment, nor will we be hearing other evidence relating to that care and treatment or any related issue at this particular hearing. Other evidence will form part of the inquiry's investigations, however, and may form part of later hearings. Immediately following this opening statement, we will hear evidence in relation to the use of vision-based digital technology. This will focus on Oxyvision. Oxyvision is a non-contact, vision-based monitoring system that uses an infrared camera to monitor the vital signs of mental health in patients and for other purposes. The use of Oxyvision has proved to be controversial, attracting very strong opinion across a range of individuals, including patients and clinicians. Its use is featured in a number of recent inquests and is of grave concern to a number of the family core participants in this inquiry. It is currently drawing considerable national interest. You have indicated, Chair, that you wish to explore carefully the use of this type of technology. We will start this morning, therefore, by hearing from Laura Cousins, the Head of Patient Safety and Quality at Oxy Health Limited, which recently rebranded to become LEO, that's capital L-I-O. OxyHealth supply the technology itself to inpatient settings. Ms. Cousins will give evidence about how the technology works in practice and its various functionalities. The inquiry understands that Oxyvision is now deployed across half of all NHS trusts. The technology has been rolled out within EPUT from April 2020. This afternoon we'll play a pre-recorded evidence session with Hat Porter, who's a representative speaking on behalf of the campaign Stop Oxyvision. Stop Oxyvision is a network of former and current NHS inpatients who in spring 2023 founded a national campaign to raise awareness of serious harms they say are caused by this technology. Stop Oxyvision has analysed research and collated an evidence base of individuals' first-hand experiences. Key concerns raised include significant invasion of the privacy of patients, the impact of the technology on the patient's health and recovery, and staffing issues. They describe it as a superficial quick fix for wider systemic issues. In their evidence, Hat Porter describes many patients' experience of the technology as being intrusive, undignified, dehumanizing, and traumatizing, and suggests there is a lack of transparency about the technology's use. Tomorrow, we will hear from Zephan Trent, Chief Strategy and Transformation Officer at EPUT. He will give evidence about the use of this technology from EPUT's perspective. Mr. Trent gives evidence about the basis upon which Oxyvision was introduced, its rollout and implementation at EPUT. Mr. Trent has also provided EPUT's latest standard operating procedure, or SOP, for Oxyvision. The Trust's position on the use of Oxyvision changed potentially significantly in April this year, particularly in relation to the consent process, and particularly, it appears, in response to matters raised in NHS England's Principles for Using Digital Technologies in Mental Health Inpatient Treatment and Care report, published in February this year. It was this change in EPUT's position and the late service of a further statement giving notice of this change in position, Chair, that resulted in your decision to postpone hearing the evidence during our April hearing. This has allowed the inquiry and the other core participants to reflect on the new material and for additional inquiries to be made. Chair, you are aware that on the 22nd of September this year, Hat Porter provided a second witness statement to the inquiry on behalf of Stop Oxyvision. This second statement addresses issues that have arisen since they first provided evidence, including developments outlined in the further statements provided by Mr. Trent, and raises further concerns about Oxyvision and the use of that technology by EPUT. Stop Oxyvision remain concerned, in particular, about the consent procedures around Oxyvision. As I have already outlined, for the majority of this hearing, Chair, the inquiry will hear oral evidence from 18 further bereaved families. May I say again, the inquiry is very grateful indeed to those witnesses for their courage in sharing their accounts. The inquiry will hear about the following people who died. Bethany Lilly, who died on the 16th of January 2019, aged 28. We will hear evidence from her brothers, Alexander and Peter Gill. Dorothy Reddit, who died sometime between the 15th and 16th of March 2021, aged 84. We will hear evidence from her daughter, Jane Stanford. Doris Joyce Smith, who died on the 14th of October 2020, aged 74. We will hear evidence from her son, Paul Ruckledge Smith, and his partner, Anna Ruckledge Smith. Keith Stubbings, who died on the 24th of April 2019, aged 61. We will hear from his niece, Samantha Rains. Valerie Dimoglu, also known as Val, who died on the 9th of October 2015, aged 76. We will hear evidence from her daughter, Sophia Dimoglu. Iris Scott, who died on the 1st of March 2014, aged 74. We will hear evidence from her daughter, Dawn Johnson, and her son, Craig Scott. Richard Wade, who died on the 21st of May 2015, aged 30. We will hear evidence from his father, Robert Wade. Lee Spencer, who died on the 27th of August 2019, aged 20. We will hear evidence from Lee's mother, Carol Stokes. Joshua Leader, who died on the 24th of November 2020, aged 35. We will hear evidence from his brother, Daniel Leader. Colin Flatt, who died on the 7th of September 2021, aged 81. We will hear from Colin's partner, Melanie Leahy. Adam Steele, who died on the 14th of October 2021, aged 36. We will hear evidence from Adam's father, Paul Steele. Sophie Alderman, who died on the 19th of August 2022, aged 27. We will hear evidence from Sophie's mother, Tammy Smith. Norman Noah Dunkley, who died on the 15th of March 2022, aged 90. We will hear evidence from his daughter, Joanne Woolley. Mark Tyler, who died on the 3rd of September 2012, aged 37. We will hear evidence from his ex-wife, Sally Misen. Margaret Anakin, who died on the 3rd of July 2015, aged 68. We will hear evidence from her husband, Timothy Whitfield. Carol Taylor, who died on the 21st of November 2023, aged 75. We will hear evidence from her husband, Ralph Taylor. Peter Ridley Joyce, who died on the 17th of March 2013, aged 83. We will hear evidence from Peter's children, Deborah Ridley Joyce and Nigel Ridley Joyce. Terence White, who died on the 14th of April 2016, aged 36. We will hear evidence from his sister, Emma Harley. And Chair, the inquiry will also hear evidence in a private session from a witness to whom you have granted a restriction order. From these witnesses, all of whom have set out their recollections, observations, and their views on the need for change with courage and clarity, the inquiry will once again hear about a number of key themes it will be examining during the course of its work. The issues about which we will be hearing during this hearing often repeat and or mirror those we heard about in July. Those include, but are by no means limited to, inadequate diagnosis and treatment, including a lack of therapeutic and personalised care, such that care and treatment was limited to crisis management, failures in assessment ranging from falls risk assessments to the adequacy of mental health assessments, failures adequately to assess and admit, or in some cases assess or admit at all, inadequate handover upon transfer from one unit to another, inappropriate medication, including over-medication, Failures to engage with families at all stages of care planning and implementation, including a lack of the family voice in care plans and discharge planning. Inappropriate and inadequate communication with families. Inadequate and/or inappropriate discharge decisions and planning. Failure to respond to physical health needs on the ward. Failures and inadequacies in relation to post-death investigations. Failures in relation to record keeping and access, including no trust-wide access to records. Lack of compassion shown on the ward by staff. Concerns in relation to the ward environment, including lack of activities and failures to differentiate between different cohorts of patients. Concerns in relation to access to high-risk items on the ward. Inadequate communication between service providers, including health services, social services, and the police. Inadequate care plans and risk assessments. Failures in observations, including inappropriate use of and over-reliance on oxyvision. Failure to observe trust protocols. Failures in safeguarding. Staff shortages. Adverse coronial findings, including neglect riders, prevention of future deaths reports, and findings of fact in relation to failures within internal trust post-death investigations. As I previously said in my July opening statement, many families have sadly become experts in some of these areas and therefore are uniquely placed to speak to these important issues. I should also reiterate, as I did in July, that the witness statements provided for this hearing by those witnesses will stand in full as their evidence. I say this as the statements will not be read out in full during the course of the hearing. Rather, the witnesses will be asked careful and focused questions about what they have written and the issues they have raised. Those witness statements will be published on the inquiry's website once each witness has given their evidence. May I say once again, for the avoidance of doubt and for clarity, that copies of the statements that are published will be redacted in line with the inquiry's published approach. There are two main categories where redactions may be applied. Staff names, including those of junior staff, will generally be disclosed in the course of the inquiry. Individuals can apply for their names to be withheld, however, in line with relevant law and the inquiry's protocol on restriction orders. Each application for a restriction order will be considered individually by the chair. Some staff may need time to decide whether to apply for anonymity and to seek legal advice. While they are given this time, their names will be redacted temporarily. This ensures fairness. To be clear, in many cases, those redactions are likely to be temporary only. Second, methods of self-inflicted death or self-harm. These details, as well as other highly distressing content, may be redacted to protect the public from potential harm. The inquiry may also apply redactions where it considers the information is unusual and could instruct others. There is also other information which may fall under the inquiry's privacy information protocol. This will be information which is personal in nature and which you, Chair, do not consider relevant and necessary to be made public. This would include details such as someone's address or other personal sensitive information. Finally, in this section of the opening, can I also remind those following and engaging with the inquiry that it has in place various further protocols. This is with the aim of assisting those who wish to engage with the inquiry in providing the best possible evidence in a way that also ensures they are supported throughout the process. All documents are accessible on the inquiry's website and kept under review. Chair, you have a wide discretion to put in place measures to support witnesses giving evidence. The inquiry will continue to work with witnesses and their legal representatives to take an individualised approach as far as is reasonably possible. I move now to the timetable. The inquiry will sit on Monday to Thursday during this week and next week. In the third week, we will sit on Monday and Tuesday. For this hearing, we will generally start at 10 a.m. and finish by 4 p.m. There will be a short break in the morning and in the afternoon, in which teas and coffees will be provided for those who are attending. There will be a 1-hour break for lunch each day. This is all subject to the need for the inquiry to proceed flexibly and take more breaks or make other arrangements as required to support witnesses. It is not necessary to attend the hearing in person to follow the inquiry's proceedings. Court participants and their lawyers who are not attending in person can watch the hearing live on a secure web link. The hearing will also be live streamed on the Lampard Inquiry YouTube channel for anyone who wishes to follow us remotely, but please note that this will be streamed with a time delay of 10 minutes. I have previously referred to the changing mental health landscape against which the work of the inquiry is taking place. During my opening in July, I made references to the NHS 10-year health plan for England, which includes proposed measures of relevance to the work of this inquiry, and which the inquiry is considering carefully alongside its work. The inquiry is also closely following the progress of the Mental Health Bill. This bill, which will result in the most significant changes to mental health care since the Mental Health Act over 40 years ago, is now in its report stage and is due back in the House of Commons tomorrow, in fact, so that MPs can debate the amendments that have been made to it. In order to ensure we work towards meaningful and relevant recommendations, the inquiry is monitoring not only the significant changes proposed by the bill, but also what the bill does not yet appear to propose. Furthermore, in a significant and important development for all public inquiries, last month saw the introduction of the Public Office Accountability Bill and the specific proposals for duties of candour and assistance, including when engaging with public inquiries. Whilst it's right to say that there has long been a statutory duty of candour for organisations who provide healthcare, we note that the position is underlined as NHS bodies and those who work for NHS bodies are specifically listed amongst those to whom the new proposed duties of candour and assistance apply. This inquiry welcomes any measures intended to improve the prospects of full and frank disclosure at all stages of an investigation, whether related to healthcare or otherwise. The inquiry also notes with interest the proposed amendments to the Inquiries Act 2005, including the proposed power to be afforded to a chair to report a public authority if they have concerns about its conduct and engagement with a public inquiry. Last Wednesday, the 8th of October, the Independent Advisory Panel on Deaths in Custody's report on Mental Health Act deaths was published. The chair of the IAPDC, Lynn Emsley, states in the foreword, "The IAPDC's latest statistical analysis of deaths in custody found that patients detained under the MHA have the highest rate of death in all detention settings, including 3 times higher than that of prisons. However, unlike deaths in prisons, immigration detention and police custody, which are independently investigated by the Prisons and Probation Ombudsman and the Independent Office for Police Conduct, respectively, the deaths of patients detained under the MHA are not investigated by an independent body prior to an inquest. The report recommends that the Department of Health and Social Care establishes an independent investigation mechanism to look at all deaths under the MHA. The IAPDC believes this should include clinical leadership and collaboration with expert organisations such as the Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman and the Health Services Safety Investigations Body, or HSIB, and regulators like the CQC to meet common aims of improving patient safety. Chair, shortly before this hearing, you received a joint written application from the legal representatives acting for bereaved families, seeking permission to address you directly in relation to a number of matters. As you have already indicated, you have considered that application carefully, and whilst you've determined that for difficult and delicate scheduling reasons, we're scheduling family evidence, you could not accommodate those submissions at the outset of this hearing. Nevertheless, you consider it very important that legal representatives are provided with an opportunity to address you directly. As a result, you've directed that a specific hearing day be held in early December to provide this opportunity. This will also allow the circulation of the inquiry's investigative strategy. Further details of that hearing will be announced shortly after this one. As I've already outlined in this opening statement, Chair, the inquiry is working hard towards the disclosure and presentation of evidence in 2026, both within and outside of its hearings structure. The next public hearings at which substantive evidence will be presented will be in February 2026, when the inquiry will hear from the remainder of those who have tragically lost family members and who wish to give live evidence to the inquiry. Thereafter, at future public hearings, the inquiry will explore its illustrative cases and will hear evidence relating to the themes and issues of concern that arise in order to meet its terms of reference. Whilst it is important to underline the sheer volume of work that is taking place separately alongside our hearings, disclosure of which will be made starting in the early part of next year, the inquiry recognises the paramount importance and significance of exploring issues in public. In order to ensure that sufficient hearing time is available, Chair, you have directed that a further substantive hearing be arranged for October next year, beginning on the 5th of October 2026, for a period of 3 weeks. That hearing will once again take place in Essex. It will be followed by a short break before the inquiry resumes at the end of November 2026 for the purpose solely of hearing closing submissions. Not only will this provide additional hearing time, it will also provide space and opportunity for the preparation of those important closing submissions. Chair, that further announcement in relation to the inquiry's future hearings brings me towards the end of my opening remarks. Your aim, and the aim of this inquiry, Chair, is to bring about long-awaited improvements in mental health care. May I say again, Chair, to you, to all of the core participants in this inquiry, and to the wider public, that your team remains committed, absolutely, to doing whatever it takes to help you scrutinise the provision of mental health inpatient services in Essex and make meaningful recommendations for long-term change. It is clear that this change is still needed. Against the backdrop of last Friday's World Mental Health Day, this inquiry was particularly saddened to see in the media just last week reports that a patient in mental health crisis at Colchester Hospital had waited over 100 hours for an inpatient death. Chair, a written version of this opening statement will shortly be available on the website. Before I finish, I'd like to make clear that this opening statement has been written with the considerable assistance of my colleagues, and particularly Ms. Harris. I'm very grateful. Chair, that is the end of the opening statement. May I ask that we rise for 10 minutes for the first witness? That will take us to 11:30.
11:30.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Rose.
Thank you.
I, Laura Cousins, do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. Please provide your full name.
My full name's Laura Cousins.
You have provided the inquiry with 2 statements. Do you have the statements in front of you?
I do.
Dealing with your first statement, please. Is it dated the 19th of February 2025? And is it 25 pages long?
That's correct.
And if you go to the last page, can we see that you've made a statement of truth at the bottom and you've signed it?
That's correct.
And in fact, you signed it on the 19th of March 2025, correct?
That's correct.
And can we go to your second statement, please? Is it dated the 28th of August 2025?
That's correct.
Is it 21 pages long?
That's correct.
And similarly, if we go to the last page, can we see the statement of truth and your signature?
You can, yes.
And in fact, you signed it on the 29th of August 2025, correct?
That's correct.
Have you had the opportunity to read through the statements recently?
I have, yes.
And can you confirm that they are accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I can.
Thank you. You're welcome to refer to them as you wish.
Thank you.
Your statements will stand as part of your evidence, along with the exhibits you've provided. I'm not, therefore, going to be asking you about everything that appears in your statements. But I do now want to move on to cover our first topic, and that's your role, please. You work at a company that is now called Leo, but was formerly called Oxy Health Limited. Is that correct?
That's correct.
We'll come on to the rebranding in a moment. For the purposes of today, I'm going to refer with you to Oxy Health, just for the sake of simplicity.
Yes.
When did you join Oxy Health?
I joined Oxy Health in May 2022.
And you are Head of Patient Safety and Quality, is that right?
That's correct.
What does that role entail?
So that role entails I'm the Clinical Safety Officer, so I work closely with our regulatory and compliance team. I also manage our training and support team, so have overall responsibility of ensuring that the product training that we offer customers and managing the 2 members of staff within that team. And I also liaise with other teams within the company.
Thank you. Do you hold a Bachelor of Science degree in mental health nursing?
I do, yes.
And a postgraduate diploma in clinical forensic psychiatry?
I do, yes.
Have you been a registered mental health nurse since 2011?
I have, yes.
Before joining Oxy Health, did you work in the NHS in various positions, including lastly as a senior clinical manager within high secure forensic services?
That's correct.
Could we move then to Oxy Health, the company? In your first statement, you describe Oxy Health as a health technology company. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is it based in Oxfordshire, and was it founded in 2012?
It was.
When did the company first start selling its technology for use within mental health inpatient units, on wards?
So OxyHealth was founded in 2012. Then over in 2014, 15 and 16, there were a couple of studies that were carried out. And then the first commercial deployment, I believe, was around 2017.
Thank you. Did the company originally develop its technology for settings other than mental health?
So in 2012, there were studies within premature babies and dialysis patients at Oxford University Hospital. So these were in early stages, looking at a prototype technique to be able to measure vital signs in a contact-free way.
Has the technology been used in police custody suites?
It has.
And was that in the early stages of its deployment?
It still currently is.
So moving then to the current position, other than mental health settings and police custody suites, where is this technology deployed?
So it's within police custody suites, mental health settings, and that includes Section 136 suites and health-based places safeties.
So the suites, the Section 136 suites, the health-based places of safety, mental health settings more generally, and police custody suites. Is that the entirety of the environments in which the technology has been deployed?
I believe there was a deployment within the prison service, but I would need to double check that.
Is that a past deployment and not present?
Past.
Thank you. Can we deal now with the rebrand to Leo? I'm going to ask that part of your second statement is put up on our screens. This is the second statement, Amanda, at page 21. So OXHE009987. Could you expand 98 to 100, please? There we go, thank you. So you say here that on the 13th of August 2025, OxyHealth announced that OxyHealth is evolving into Leo, a new identity. We've listened to what matters most and made Leo more adaptable to the diverse and evolving needs of patients and staff. Building on the foundations of Oxyvision, a new platform will be introduced in 2026, which will bring together ambient patient monitoring, digital observations, and management insights in one purpose-built solution. We'll come on to talk about Oxyvision in a moment, but can you first tell me what you mean by paragraph 99 and what the reason for the rebrand actually is?
So it's not unusual for companies to rebrand, and the rebrand was a long-standing project that was well underway prior to us being contacted or involved with the inquiry. And that is, we've listened to comments from customers, from experts by experience that we work with, and taken all of those on board, and are in the process of developing a new platform, which would cover a number of different areas of the platform.
Would you accept that this rebrand is taking place during a time where the technology we'll be discussing, Oxyvision, is being criticised and the system is garnering press attention?
I think, as I said, the rebrand was a long-standing project that was well underway prior to any involvement with the inquiry.
So is your evidence that the rebrand has nothing to do with the recent press attention concerning Oxyvision?
That's correct.
Could you take that down, please? In your first statement, you describe Oxyvision as a contactless patient monitoring system for mental health hospitals and other settings. Can you, in general terms, tell us what its purpose is, please?
So there are many elements to the platform. So you've got the ability to be able to take contact-free vital signs. So that's pulse rate and respiration rate. The system also provides safety alerts and warnings, which can be configured depending on the patient population, and that is down to the customer's choice. There is a module around mental health observations. So I think we've heard from other witnesses that within mental health inpatient services, all patients are subject to periodic checks. These could be every 15 minutes, every hour, those general observations. And I think what we see within mental health services is staff still walk around with a clipboard and pen writing down these observations, which can be quite timely and from an audit process not very effective, and from a compliance point of view. So part of the platform is digitalising that practice. So there's a module to do that.
So is it installed in bedrooms only?
That's correct.
Not in bathrooms or communal areas?
That's correct.
And as we've heard, does that include rooms in seclusion rooms and health-based places of safety?
That's correct.
Thank you. Can we we're going to come back to look at what you've just said in more detail, but can we start with the physical components of the technology, please? Could you, first of all, describe the camera that is part of this system?
So the platform uses a combination of software and hardware. So the hardware is made up of a camera and 2 infrared illuminators, which are housed within a secure housing unit within the patient's bedroom. This is normally located between the wall and the ceiling. It's probably about that size in length.
So you're indicating maybe a little over a metre. What we'll do a little later on is we'll look at a picture of all of these pieces of hardware. So there's the camera with the infrared illuminators. Are there also monitors and tablets? Could you describe those, please?
So the system provides information to staff on portable tablet devices, so they've got access to all the information when they're on the ward. But there's also a fixed monitor in the nurse's office, which is hardwired.
So the tablet devices, are they a little like iPads?
Yes, they're not iPads, but yeah.
And how many typically tablets would there be on each ward?
So 2 to 3, but if a ward had the Oxyvision observation module, then there would be more.
You have referred to the Oxyvision system being contact-free. Can you explain what you mean by that, please?
So what I mean is that there is nothing that the patient has to wear. So there's no wearables. It's able to remotely monitor with nothing attached to the patient.
And you said remotely. Is it right that staff don't actually need to be with the patient to use the system?
That's correct.
I'd like to come on to one aspect of the technology referred to as OxyHealth vital signs, please. You say this in your first statement, and can we put this up, please? It's the first statement at paragraph 14. That's OXHE009031. Thank you very much. And so we can see here that Oxyvision, and I'm quoting from 14, Oxyvision includes 2 regulated medical devices. OxyHealth vital signs, so that's the one we'll focus on. It can be used to measure a patient's vital signs, pulse rate 50 to 130 beats per minute, and breathing rate 8 to 39 breaths per minute, and will not give measurements outside these ranges. It provides a 15-second live, clear video feed into a room at the point at which a pulse and breathing rate observation is being taken to allow the clinician to confirm suitability. And can we see in the first of the 2 bullet points, spot check vital signs measurements are taken manually when a staff member clicks into the Take Vital Signs workflow for the selected room. We'll come on to look at aspects of that in more detail in a moment. Can I ask you a more basic question at this stage? Why is it necessary to monitor these in mental health settings?
So I think there are many reasons. So within mental health settings, people still have physical health issues that need to be addressed. And people have pre-existing physical health concerns. Quite often within mental health, the medication that patients are prescribed can have a sedative effect. So being able to monitor those vital signs from that point of view. There was an example that during COVID, we know that from a physical health point of view, the effect of COVID on respiratory rate, so breathing rate, so being able to monitor that. And also from the point of view of, I was talking earlier about those general mental health observations that need to take place.
We'll come on to those. Thank you very much. But just in terms of taking vital signs measurements, those would be the primary reasons for the need in the context of a mental health setting.
Yeah, and you've got the example of if somebody's in seclusion as well, being able to closely monitor.
You say that vital signs, and we can see at the top of the screen, is a regulated medical device. What do you mean by that, please?
So there are two regulated medical devices to the platform. One of those is the Take Vital Signs, and the other is our sleep module. So what that means is it's subject to regulations and monitoring by a notified body. So subject to increased regulation, technical documentation reviews, and they happen unannounced and announced, both with audits as well. So every year there's a planned audit by the British Standards Institute, and every 5 years approximately there's an unannounced audit. And the purpose of those are to go through our quality management system and all the records that we keep on those devices, so our technical files, and they're regularly submitted for review approximately every 3 years.
Is it cleared by the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, the MHRA?
That's correct.
Can you tell us what, you've just described part of the process. Is that, you talked about the British Standards Institute. Do you know what the MHRA does in respect of this technology?
So I believe, I will double check, but the British Standards Institute communicate with MHRA.
Okay. Do either the BSI or the MHRA consider the ethical implications of the use of vital signs in mental health inpatient care?
So the BSI review any claims that we make around safety and effectiveness.
Do you know to what extent either consider whether it's appropriate in the first place to put this kind of technology in the bedroom of a mental health inpatient?
I don't.
You've provided the inquiry with a document that explains how the infrared camera works within the Oxyvision system. It says this: when your heart beats, your skin flushes red. The human eye cannot see these micro blushes, but Oxyvision's infrared sensitive camera can. The system counts these micro blushes to calculate a pulse rate. The system collects breathing rates by counting the rise and fall of the individual's chest. Now, does that correctly summarize how this is working?
Yes.
Thank you. So the system will need access to a person's skin and will need to be able to see the rise and fall of their chest if it's to operate for vital signs purposes.
Yes, so access to the skin in order to be able to measure pulse rate and the rise and fall of the chest for breathing rate.
Thank you very much. Is Oxyvision a type of technology that is sometimes referred to as a vision-based patient monitoring system.
It has been, yes.
And sometimes that's referred to as a VBPMS or just VBMS.
That's correct.
Thank you. Do you know whether there are companies other than Oxy Health that provide this technology to the NHS within England?
I believe there may be one other company. It is my understanding that they do not have a registered medical device yet, I believe.
Thank you. Just discussing using the vital signs function, is the process that a clinician first accesses a 15-second live clear video feed of the patient in their room?
So the first step of that process is the system provides up to 15 seconds.
Up to?
Yes.
And when we say clear video feed, could you just be clear about what that means?
It is a clear live picture of the room.
So it's what most people would consider a video feed to be?
Yes.
Why is it necessary that a clinician accesses up to 15 seconds of clear view prior to making a vital signs check?
So there are 2 points to this. So the first point being that you're taking somebody's pulse and respiration rate, and therefore that would form part of their medical record. So you want to assure yourself that that is the person that you expect to be in that room, and that another patient isn't in there. And the other purpose is to be able to answer the first question within the workflow. And that question is the subject still?
And we'll come on to see that. Thank you. We can see reference in that first bullet point to spot check vital signs measurements being taken by clicking into the system, and we'll also come on to that in a moment.
Okay.
Can we just look at the bottom bullet point on the screen, please? It says this: the vital signs trends chart shows a summary of average vital signs data that is automatically generated in the background to assist trend identification. It cannot be used in isolation to measure or monitor pulse rate or breathing rate. Amanda, would you go over these to the next page, the top of the next page, please? Yeah. Thank you. And then we can see here the vital sign trend data is represented by grey trends diamonds on the report, which show a summary of average collected by Oxyvision for at least 75 seconds of a 5-minute period. Vital signs data. Now, there's quite a lot to unpick there. Could you explain what is being described there?
So one of the reports of the system is what we call the Vital Signs Trends Report. Now, this is a report which has 2 graphs, so there's a graph at the top and a graph at the bottom. I believe the graph at the top is pulse rate and the bottom graph is breathing rate. Now, what this shows is it's got the scale of the measurements on the left-hand side, and then across the bottom there's a 24-hour period. Now, on each of these graphs, it will show you when a staff member has gone through the vital sign workflow and obtained spot check measurements, so there's medical device measurements, and these will be represented by a red or a blue dot depending on which graph. Now, as a clinician, you've got the ability to be able to select these red and blue dots so you can see what that measurement was and at what date and time that was taken. What the report also shows is grey diamonds. And these grey diamonds represent an average of what's going on, an average measurement for what's going on for that patient. So they're not actual spot check measurements because you haven't gone through the workflow on the vital signs, but it provides an average over a 5-minute window of what's going on for a patient.
Can I ask you this? Does that mean that Oxyvision cameras attempt to take continuous vital sign measurements without manual prompts from staff?
So the system's constantly monitoring the room.
So the system is constantly monitoring the room. So the system, absent any staff request or operation, is engaging with the patient and trying to take vital signs measurements itself.
Not necessarily taking vital sign measurements, but it's working out that average over a 5-minute window. They're not actual measurements, those grey diamonds.
But is it doing so in the same way that you described before by looking at micro blushes in the skin and the rise and fall of the chest?
That's correct.
Hang on, let's be clear about this. You referred to 2 graphs, red dots, blue dots, and that demonstrates that there is constant monitoring by the system.
No. So those red and blue dots are the actual measurements that have been taken by a clinician going through the Take Vitals workflow. So they're the actual spot check measurements.
Right.
And then the grey diamonds are a trend of what's happening in the background. So it's not an actual measurement because it's an average over a 5-minute period.
Let's be completely clear about this. So it appears that there are 2 ways for this system to make measurements of vital signs. One involves staff input, correct?
That's correct.
And that is by clicking through to get the clear view first, and then clicking, as we'll see, on a screen and taking a manual spot check.
That's correct.
But quite separate from that, the system itself is continuously monitoring the person in the room and trying itself to take the same measurements.
To be able to provide that average.
To provide
yes.
an average. So it's less accurate, is it?
It's not medical grade because it's an average over a 5-minute period. So it's not done at a point in time.
And how does it overcome what you said was the need for the observation at the same time, the clear view 15-second observation? You said then that there was an issue with trying to identify that somebody was alone in the room and that they were resting. How does that 5-minute average overcome, as it were, those particular restrictions on how accurate it is?
So, as I said before, the grey diamonds aren't an actual medical grade reading. It is an average. The system knows when, if it knows that the room is occupied and that a second person has entered, it recognises that. And it's over that 5-minute window, but what it needs is 75 seconds of confidence within that 5-minute window in order to be able to produce a grey diamond.
So if there are 2 people in the room, the system won't necessarily be taking the vital signs of the patient. It may be someone else.
That wouldn't appear on the graph.
How would the system know?
The system knows when there's multiple occupants within the room.
And doesn't take signs at that time?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Can you take that down, please? To follow up on vital signs, I'd like to go to a slide deck that you have provided the inquiry with, which you tell us in your statement was provided by OxyHealth to EPIRT for a meeting on the 4th of March 2020. Could you put up, please, OXHE 009 041 at page 15? Right. So we'll just look at aspects of this slide deck. And I'm sorry that it is in
I can't read it, sorry, it's completely blurred.
Can other people read it on their screens? No. No, that doesn't help. I think there is a colour version of this. I think we need to load that onto the system so that we can go through slides that you can actually read. For that to happen, I'm going to ask that we rise for 10 minutes. And hopefully by then we'll have put onto the system a clear version of this, if that's all right, Chair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're absolutely right, it's very difficult to engage with this. So can we come back at 12:15, please? Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. We've now loaded the relevant documents onto the system. We'll go to them in a second. Before we do, just picking up on the vital signs trends data that we were talking about, I'd asked you about what happens if there are two people in a room, and you responded to that. But if there's only one person in a room, the vital signs trends function won't know whether that's actually the patient or not. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So it could, if there's only one person in the room and it's not the patient, it could be picking up the vitals of someone completely different.
So the system, the data is based by room rather than by patient. In relation to that, the Vision Observations module is slightly different.
And we'll come on to that in a moment.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So can we put up the document that I tried to go to before, Amanda, please? And so just to remind people, this is... Actually, that's showing just part of the... There we go, thank you, thank goodness. This is from 2020, this slide deck. And can you just explain to us here, what we can see is a slide with a series of green tiles with room numbers on them, and a window in the middle for room 4, and it says on it either pause for 15 minutes or under vital signs, circled take observation. Can you tell us from your experience what the text underneath that says?
So this is a screenshot from 2018, I believe.
Okay.
So this is how the system used to look. So the system doesn't look like this anymore. However, what that shows is that room 4 has been selected from the room tiles. You've then got that pop out tile. And then it's got vital signs and then take observations. So that would take you into the vital sign workflow.
And it says pause for 15 minutes. What would that be for?
So that's pausing the system. So an example of this would be in older adult settings, for instance. If clinicians needed to go in to deliver personal care, you've got the ability to be able to pause the system. So therefore, basically, it switches the system off for that period of time.
And is that a facility, as far as you're aware, that's available at ePut?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, what does it take undertake observation? What does it say undertake observations? It's difficult to read.
I think it says observation history, so that would be...
Yes.
Yes, observation history, thank you. So that will show you the vital signs that have been taken for that room. I'm unsure as to whether the vital sign trend function had been introduced at this point.
Understood.
I think that's outlined in my statement.
Amanda, could you show the full screen again, please? So this is the screen from the monitor or the tablet, is that correct?
That's correct.
And is this the start of the vital signs spot check process?
As I say, this is old, so this is no longer the process now. However, in 2018, that would have been the process.
And one selects a room and then taps take vital signs.
So, yeah, each room is donated by a tile, which you can see underneath there. And then you've got the ability to select that room and then select take observations.
Now, in what way has this changed after 2018?
So it looks very different. Each room is still donated by a room tile. However, now when you select on a room, you've got access to all information for that room. So you've got access to the activity report, the vital sign trend report, the observation history, so the mental health observation history.
So it gives you access more quickly to more information.
It gives you all of the information for that room in one place. Also the wording, it says take vital signs. And
so that's changed?
That's changed, yeah.
And when did that change?
So that changed... There's been a various changes since this one in 2018. So there's been a number of different changes to how the home screen looks and how it's set out in relation to when you select a room.
So you say in your statement that this slide deck was provided by OxyHealth to EPIRT for a meeting in March 2020. So changes would have been at some stage after that, correct?
There's been many changes since then.
But the essential point that we're looking at here is that you select a room via the monitor and then click on a part of the monitor to take vital signs remains the same.
Yes.
Thank you. Can we go to the next slide, please? And can we see the full slide? So this says step 2, check if the patient is still and click ready for observation. And we can see guidelines for considering the patient to be still can be found in the instructions for use. And we see underneath the patient must be still to get a reliable reading. If you are unsure, do not proceed. So can you just explain a little bit more about what's going on in this slide?
So that's the first question of the workflow, where the system is asking if the subject is still. So you would use that view of that room to check that that patient is still. You would then select, I believe that says ready for observation, the blue button.
So this is all a part of the process of checking whether it's appropriate to take the vital signs.
That's correct.
And as we can see there, the patient has to be still. It won't work if the patient is moving around.
They've got to be relatively still, yes.
Next slide, please. So this is stage 3 or step 3, and we've got some interesting language here. Check if there are blobs that do not touch the body and click no. And we can see on the right-hand side, blobs on skin equals pulse rate, blobs on body equals breathing rate. Examples can be found in instructions for use. And at the bottom, we can see the blobs must be on the body to get a reliable reading. If the patient is completely covered, proceed with caution. Would you just explain what's going on there, please?
Yeah. So this is the second stage of the workflow. I just want to highlight here that this image is now a paused image. This is no longer a live image of that room. So the system basically takes a screen grab, a screenshot, so to speak, from the first question. And then what the system's asking, it overlays that paused screenshot with blue blobs, and that's indicating to the user where the system is intending to take those measurements from. So an example I can give would be if there is an airflow mattress, for instance, being used in a room, the system may interpret the rise and fall of an airflow mattress as the rise and fall of somebody's chest. But what it would do is it would put one of these blue blobs onto that mattress area rather than the person. So as long as you are satisfied that those blobs are on the person, you would then select no.
And can we actually see a blue blob on the person in the screen here? Thank you. It says here, if the patient is completely covered, proceed with caution. What does completely covered mean in this context? Does it mean their head is covered as well?
So if somebody was completely covered with a blanket, for example, proceed with caution. Again, you would be going through those two stages of the workflow to ensure that you're satisfied.
Can we go to the next slide, please? So step 4, record observation. And we can see here, under the still, heart rate is given of 93 beats per minute, and the breathing rate is given at 30 breaths per minute. And the information provided says exactly when that reading was taken. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's date and time stamped.
Now, as we've seen already, there is a bracket both in relation to pulse rate and breathing rate within which this technology can work. In other words, it can't take measurements outside those ranges. Is that correct?
That's correct. It will not give you a measurement outside of those ranges.
And we can see at the bottom text that says work in progress to extend pulse rate range, updated ranges to be released as and when within instructions for use. So this isn't for privacy or any other reasons, it's just a limitation of the technology, is that correct?
As in those ranges of
Those
pulse,
ranges,
yes.
yeah. So you've told us that this is actually from 2018. Have those ranges increased since then, as far as you're aware?
No.
Thank you very much. Could we go to the next slide, please? So we've got here observation history, and we can see screenshots of two screens. We see on one that observation history is circled, and then on the other we see a graph, and we see text that says check the occupancy of a room may have changed within the 24-hour default period. Can we start, please, first with the screenshot on the left and what that is showing us?
So that is a picture of the home screen within the background, and then you'll see there that the smaller square within that says room 4, and it's got observation history with a red circle around it. So somebody has selected room 4 and they're then given that menu.
And at this stage, the vital signs checks have been made and recorded?
That's correct.
Thank you. Now, let's see if we can expand the graph, please, in the right-hand screenshot. So here we see, as I think this is what you've described previously, is that right?
No, it's not strictly right. So this is the observation history. So these two graphs that we're looking at now shows you those actual measurements that have been taken. So this was prior to the vital signs trend, because there are no grey diamonds within the background of that.
So let's just take it in stages. This demonstrates where successful vital signs have been taken, both in relation to heart rate with red at the top and breathing rate with blue at the bottom.
That's correct.
And with vital signs trends, we might also see grey diamonds.
That's correct.
And that would, as you said, indicate whether the system itself has been able to take averages in the background.
That's correct.
Thank you. Could you take that down, please? Thank you. I'd like to come on now to alerts and warnings, please. You explain in your first statement, this is paragraph 15, that Oxyvision provides location and activity-based warnings and alerts, which are configured by each organisation based on what they consider is appropriate for their individual ward settings. Can I ask you, first of all, what is the difference between a warning and an alert?
So the difference between a warning and alert is the colour of the room tile. So if an alert, if the room is in a warning state, the room tile, so if we think back to that home screen where we had green tiles, the colour of the tile would be amber. Now, if an alert has been triggered, the colour of that room tile would be red, but also you would have a audible alert to go alongside the red room tile. Warnings are only visual.
Thank you. So let's just unpick that, if we may. The audible alert, is it something like Oxyvision Alert, literally?
It's now it just says alert, alert. It was Oxy Health Alert, Oxy Health Alert.
So it would be, you would hear a person's voice?
Yes.
Thank you. You've told us the effect that is different of either a warning or alert, in that one leads to an amber tile and the other leads to a red tile. But we still don't know what the actual difference is between a warning and alert. Could you give us some idea of that, please?
I think it's also important just to highlight as well before is that an alert has to be interacted with by staff. So staff have got the ability, when the alert is raised, they need to action something. And when I say something, that would all be dependent on what an organisation's standard operating procedure states in relation to the use of the system and how staff should respond to alerts.
But in terms of interacting with an audible alert we're dealing with now, can that alert either be paused or switched off, or are there other options too?
So there are two options. One is to view a room, so you're able to view the room. And if I just provide an example to this, so if you're, it's the middle of the night, you're dealing with a patient in room 2, an alert has been raised for a patient in room 6. If the organisation's protocol states staff have got the ability to be able to view that room. Now, what that provides is a anonymised video for that room of up to 15 seconds. What I mean by anonymised is it's pixelated and blurred, so you couldn't tell.
We'll come on to the difference between clear view and blurred view in a moment. What I'm trying to ascertain just at the moment is what the difference is between an alert and a warning. Could you give us an example of when an alert might be triggered?
So if I give you an example of at-door, for instance, so predominantly used within working age adult wards. So an organisation may have a warning configured that if somebody loiters within a door area for a set period of time, this raises a warning, so the room tile would change to amber, and then after another configurable set time period, it would change to an alert.
So the alert is in relation to more serious potential situations than the other scenario?
Potentially.
Thank you.
Can the warnings be differentiated between individual rooms, individual patients?
Not at the moment, but that's something that we're looking at in relation to the new generation of the platform.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you.
Not at all. Thank you very much. You referred to anonymised view of a room, and I'd like to turn to that with you now, please. This is also referred to as a blurred view or blurred video. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You explain in your statements that Oxavision video data is made available to staff during an alert, and you've just been telling us about that. So when there is that kind of alert, and the system has triggered it, and we'll hear an audible person speaking alert, what happens? What does a member of staff have access to at that time?
So when that alert is triggered, a member of staff has got access to be able to view that room. So that example that I gave, that if you were busy helping another patient but an alert has been raised, again, it depends on an organisation's protocol for use, but you've got the ability to be able to view that room. That is a blurred video of up to 15 seconds in order for you to be able to make that clinical judgment that actually, do you need to leave what you're doing right that second and attend to the other patient? Do you need to summon help for the other patient immediately? Or can you finish doing what you're doing and then attend the other patient? But again, it depends on an organisation's protocol on how staff respond to alerts.
So what is blurred precisely? Is the whole picture blurred, or just the bits of the individual, just their face, for example?
So it's not personally identifiable data, so the person is pixelated.
The whole of the body?
The person, yeah, the whole of the person.
We'll come back to that a little bit later. And can you confirm that access to blurred view in this way is for up to 15 seconds at EPUT?
I can.
Thank you. There is one question that presents itself. Why does a member of staff have access to clear view of a patient for the purposes of taking vital signs, but only a blurred view for a potentially more serious event when an alert has been triggered?
So for the purpose of taking the vital signs, again, you need to identify that that is the patient that you're expecting to be in that room, and you wouldn't be able to do that if that was a blurred, pixelated image. However, the other point is a very good point, and we have had that raised by a number of customers that actually a clear view would be better when looking from an alert point of view. However, it was done with privacy in mind.
And we'll come back to the question of privacy in a moment. So you've also mentioned already another aspect of the system, Oxyvision observations. And I'd like to move on to that now with you, please. Is that sometimes abbreviated to OxyObs?
Yes, that's correct.
What I'm going to do is put up part of Zephan Trent's witness statement, his first statement at paragraph 27. This is EPUT 009024 at 7, page 7. Thank you. And yes, highlighting 27. That's excellent. Thank you very much. And so can we see here that Mr. Trent says that EPUT has also deployed Oxyvision observations, an additional module to Oxyvision. Oxyvision observations helps mental health providers and their staff improve safety with observation compliance, prompting staff to carry out on-time observations using a handheld tablet device and giving access to accurate and up-to-date patient observations for all staff. It supports therapeutic and personalised care as it allows for the recording of comments and individual risk factors. And he says a little bit further down, Oxyvision Observations is a digital observation module within the Oxyvision system. The Oxyvision Observations module is a digital version of the paper observations record. And he goes on to say, Oxyvision Observations is implemented only on Oxyvision-equipped inpatient wards, seclusion rooms and health-based places of safety to enhance and improve patient care and safety in order to provide a clear record of observations in a digital format through integration to the electronic patient record, assist in the identification of trends, and report on quality of engagement and observation activity. Now, does that provide an accurate summary of what Oxyvision Observations is and how it works?
It does.
Was Oxyvision Observations actually developed by OxyHealth in conjunction with EPUT?
That's correct.
I understand from your evidence that that development started from late 2021. Does that sound about right?
Yes, October 2021, I believe.
Now, it's not clear to me from this description and from what we've seen so far how a member of staff conducts observations using OxyObs. Can I ask you this? Do they perform an in-person check? So the member of staff goes to the bedroom and then logs it electronically through the tablet, for example, or are they actually using the Oxyvision camera to conduct remote observations?
So again, this would depend on an organisation's protocol and how they want their staff to interact with the Oxyvision observations module.
Do you know what the situation is at EPUT?
I believe it is that they walk around with the tablet and use that as they're walking round the ward and log those observations as they walk around.
We can ask, I will ask Mr. Trent about that tomorrow, but does this give the facility to actually conduct a remote observation through the camera so that a member of staff does not actually need to go and see the patient in person?
That's correct, yes. And it enables staff to be able to carry out that general observation at night, so less intrusive at night. So staff are able to not have to wake patients up. So at night, those general observations that I spoke about earlier continue. And as a member of staff, you need to assure yourself that that patient is safe and well. So this could result in you having to go into a patient's room. That could be every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, every 60 minutes. Now, you may have to turn a light on to be able to see that rise and fall of somebody's chest. You may use a torch. So from an intrusive point of view, you can see how intrusive these observations can be. We know how important sleep is for recovery. Now, if somebody's woken up 4 times an hour during the night, that's not therapeutic. That's not helping that person. So where suitable and in agreement with the patient and the multidisciplinary team and the organisation, you could use the system in that way at night for certain patients.
But I think,
sorry,
but I think Mr. Griffin's point is whether if you're walking around with the handheld one, you can actually use it for the same functions as the monitors in the nursing station. In other words, for actually undertaking the 15-minute clear view and then prompting
15 seconds.
The 15-second clear view and then prompting the vital signs check.
Yes, in order to assure yourself that that person's safe and well.
Yeah.
Thank you. So there are 2 ways of conducting observations using OxyObs. One is to use the tablet effectively just to input information from an in-person view. The other is not to visit the patient at all, but to conduct the observation remotely through the screen or the tablet. Is that correct?
You could do that, and again, it depends on the organisation.
You said you didn't know really what happened at EPUT. Is that correct?
I believe, and again, this would be a question for EPUT, but I believe EPUT walk around with their tablet.
So you're unaware
and record those observations.
Are you unaware of concerns that have been raised in relation to the use of Oxyvision at EPUT, that staff have become over-reliant on observations that are conducted remotely through the tablet or through the screen?
I was aware of that information through some of the inquests that I've attended.
So it would appear, wouldn't it, that at EPUT they are conducting observations, at least some remotely, not just at night, but at all times?
It would appear that way from that information.
Can I ask you this? When conducting a remote observation, what is a member of staff able to access? Is it clear view or blurred view?
Are you talking about the take vital signs?
Well, I'm just trying to understand how you are able to make an observation remotely using the system and a monitor or a tablet. Can you just take us through that process?
So there's 2 ways that you can access the Take Vital Sign workflow. That is as standard via the home screen, selecting the room and going in via that way. The other way is through the Oxyvision observations module. So you are required to enter the location of a patient. And if that patient is in their room, you've got the ability then to be able to take vital signs again, for that example that I gave at night time, for instance.
So forgive me if I haven't understood, but are you effectively using the vital signs function also to conduct observations? So do you have access to the 15 seconds of clear view?
If you access the Take Vital Sign workflow, you've got access to the 15-second clear view. If you're accessing it via the Oxyvision observations, that's giving you the assurance that somebody is breathing rather than having to go in. This is an example, by the way, rather than having to go in and disturb that patient at night.
But sorry, what I don't understand at present is when you're using OxyObs as opposed to vital signs, what is the member of staff actually able to see if they're not conducting an in-person check?
So if they access the Take Vitals via Oxyvision observations, it's exactly the same as if you access it
I see. So
via the room tile.
Okay, so a remote observation is conducted as part of the vital signs workflow.
You've got access to a 15-second clear video.
Thank you. So a member of staff might be asking the system to give 15 seconds, up to 15 seconds of clear view, either to take vital signs or to conduct observations, or both.
Yes. Again, dependent on the organisation's protocol for use.
But in terms of EPUT, would that be the case as far as you're aware?
That would be a question for EPUT to answer.
Thank you. Just moving on or back to the hardware, we haven't seen what it looks like yet. So I'm going to ask that a slide is put up from a staff information presentation. This is OXHE 009041 at page 4. This is from a training deck provided by OxyHealth to EPUT for a meeting on the 4th of March 2020, according to your statement. So page 4, please. It should be OXHE 009041, page 4. Here we go. Amanda, could you, first of all, expand the left-hand square there, the bedroom seclusion room? Thank you. So just explain what we see there, please.
So that at the top left of that image is the housing unit. So what you can see there is you've got the 2 infrared illuminators, which allows the system to work during all at varying light levels within the room. And then you've got the camera as well, which is behind that black piece of perspex.
And does the unit look substantially similar to that now?
Currently.
Currently, okay. It's quite big, isn't it?
It is.
It would be very clear to the patient in the room that there was that unit right close to their bed.
Yes.
We've heard evidence that there is a light that is illuminated within the unit when it's plugged in. Is that correct?
That's correct. If I could explain a little bit.
Yes.
So the illuminators may display a subtle glow from them, and that happens even when the system is switched off. So even when the camera is off, the housing unit is still powered. And those illuminators stay on. Now, we use a visible part of the infrared spectrum in relation to the illuminators, but we are looking at this for future development.
And I'll ask you a little bit more about that later. But so we can see the 2 illuminators on the left-hand side of the unit in this photograph, correct, as you said?
Correct.
So those would glow, is that what you're describing?
There's a possibility that there may be a subtle red glow, yes.
Now, we've also heard in the evidence that's been provided to us that there's a light that is displayed that shows that the unit is plugged in. Are you aware of that? No.
No. I think it's sort of also important to note that this glow may be more obvious at night when the light levels within the room are lower, and could possibly be not seen during daylight hours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Amanda, would you expand the next, the staff interface? So the right-hand side of the screen, please. So can we see here the monitor in the nurse's station and an example of a tablet?
Yes.
And we can see the graph, the observation history graph there. And we can see a variety of tiles shown on the tablet, including from green, amber to red, correct?
Yes, and there's also an empty room state on there.
And that's the white square?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Chair, we've reached 1 o'clock, so it might be appropriate to rise now until 2.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.